Okay, and this is then where normally the
Oh,
cool jingle starts, and it's like,
yes.
"Woo, fancy School of Innovation, office hours,"
That's
or
our
something like that.
that's it. That's
Done.
our jingle. Done.
Cool.
We're done.
Done.
Okay, we're live. Suzanne, good morning. Good afternoon.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. I'm just gonna let the folks on LinkedIn know that we are live. So I'll just say we are live at our YouTube channel. So just posted that.
Boom.
Yeah, I just posted that. We are live at, and we'll see if anyone joins us. That would be cool to have some more folks on, right? It's not just you and I looking at each other, just talking to ourselves, which is nice. I like that. It's fine. I'm
But
okay
that's the
with that.
MVP, right? That's already viable and valuable for me as well. Just to
Exactly.
talk things through, explore
That's really
ideas. So,
That's really what it is. That's really what it is. We're just talking to ourselves, to
to-
ourselves, but with another person, and kind of reflecting on stuff that you know
yeah,
we want to reflect on. Um,
I think it
I'll
was a great
just
summary. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm just going to make one more post on LinkedIn. Uh, Office hours number 2 is now live. Join us on our it's really interactive here
I do this
on
as well.
our
I do this as well. When
yeah,
I'm typing something, it's like to read it out so that everybody feels part of the journey of messaging and
yeah.
reaching out. And
I,
yeah,
no, I
no,
think you're absolutely like you're onto something, because I think we need to kind of play it back in our heads to like, because right when you get an email, you never know what the person who wrote it really sounded like.
well, you read it through your own filters, right? You just read it
Yes.
in the vibe you're in. Hey, Asmeet, good afternoon. Um, we were just talking about emails and the tone and like, well, at least. So recently I had someone make a really, really interesting comment. Sylvia, not sure if she's on. And she said, well, when I write an email, I always think about what kind of response I want to get. And I just write it in such a way that they will have to give me that as a response.
Oh,
And I was
nice.
like, that's, in terms of, yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was a good angle because
I think
I'm
you're onto a
um,
startup. That's a startup. Like you should have something that plays back what you wrote
natural language
in different.
processing.
Yeah, but that'd be easy to do. Like in different kinds of tones and voices. Like you could have like maybe it's a pissed off, angry employee or coworker, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of
Mm-hmm.
reads it back to you, or maybe it's like a nice, lovable, huggable person that reads it back to you. So that'd be pretty cool.
I'm like, what would be the riskiest assumption to start with here? But I think it's quite a
let's
list.
let's do a pace. We're gonna talk about pace today, right? We're
Exactly.
gonna
Let's start
Yeah.
there.
All right. Well, first of all, we wanted a couple of quick announcements. So,
Yeah, go for it.
quick announcement number 1: it's all happening next week. So next week we have 2 live podcast recording events, which just basically means we're recording a podcast episode with a guest, and we're opening up participation. Like we're opening up the recording to everyone who wants. Well, not everyone. The first 100 people who want to
It's
join
a
in.
small, intimate, select group of people, and
Exactly.
you can be one of them.
Yes,
That was what you were trying to say, right?
that's what I was trying to say. Thank you,
Yeah, no,
Suzanne. That's
just
exactly.
checking.
You just read my mind. So the first one is on the 19th, and it's with Scott Anthony from Innoside, who's based in Singapore, and we're going to talk about his new book, Eat, Sleep, Innovate. Okay,
My
that
life,
happens.
every
Yeah,
day, day in,
that
day out.
I
Yeah.
knew you're going to empathize with that. Yes, that's actually in a nutshell you. Eat, sleep, and innovate.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in maybe later. But okay, we have that recording happening at 10 a.m. Israel time, which is like 4 p.m. Asia or Hong Kong, or it's just like China time, and Sydney time is like 5 p.m. if I'm not mistaken. But you can find all the information on our LinkedIn page. And the second one is on the 20th, an episode with the two folks, Jenny and Roland from 500 Startups. And we're going to talk about how to be successful with POC, proof of concept experiments that corporates run with startups. Okay.
Cool.
And that happens like at 9 p.m. Israel time. It's like West Coast USA. So check that out on our LinkedIn page and be one of the few to get access to this exclusive event.
Exclusive.
There you
Small
go.
fireside chat, personalized, the
No, but
best.
Jenny and Roland are awesome. Yes.
Yeah. It's like a little bit of a selling, It's like
Yeah, we have to sell it. You have to sell it.
It's going to be amazing. Be there or be square. Do you know why they say be there or be square?
I don't actually.
Because you're not around.
Oh, there you go. Where's your mic? You got to drop the mic.
I know. Well, we tried that last time and it was not as cool as I thought it would be. So I'll come up with something else for the end of this episode today.
You had good build up this time, though.
Thank you.
I really wanted to know. I was like on the edge. Like, what does that mean?
I know.
Okay, let's get into the episode. The episode. Office hours. We've got Asmit here with us, and thank you for joining. We're gonna keep on talking about innovation methodologies and focus on PACE. Revisit PACE today, because last time you had a lot more to say and I interrupted. So I'm gonna give you the floor.
Idea, right? It's a dialogue. It's not a monologue. Otherwise, it would be lectures of innovation instead of school of innovation.
Exactly.
But
exactly. But there's some so I went back to some of the notes that you had prepared for last week's office hours and realized, there's a lot of stuff here that we didn't cover, and that's because I couldn't stop talking. So I'll shut up. I just want to ask you, we're going to go back to PACE. You had a note here about how you train people on PACE, right?
Mm-hmm.
You 1 day intro training, all of that stuff. Like, how do you set that up? Yeah. Let's talk about that. That's interesting.
Cool. So let's start with PACE and a quick intro, like what is it about for all the viewers back home. So PACE is within ING, the company I'm working in, is the methodology we use to innovate. And we've taken elements from design thinking, lean startup, and Agile Scrum, and we put them together in a way that works for us. And we use it for both building new startups and setting up partnerships in innovation labs, but also a more transformative business unit driven innovation project. So it's quite versatile. And so where I came from was initially setting up the innovation lab, where we focused on those startups, which are people that are working on innovation 24/7, building a new solution, building a new company around it. So their reality is just hoodies and innovating. Mm-hmm. However, once upon a time, I was part of the rest of the organization outside of the people with hoodies group. And I was in an analyst role, a client-facing role, and there was lots of stuff that I was like, hey, we can do this better. We can automate something, or we can streamline this, or why are we doing this in the first place? And that was actually for me the reason to make the transition to innovation, because I was like, I want to help people. And if I move to this side of the business, I can actually bring value in a different way. So initially we set up the innovation lab, which was really more focused on supporting our customers and coming up with new value propositions for 5 years' time to make sure that we go beyond traditional banking products. However, once the lab was up and running, I was like, I still want to fix those problems that I saw and help my colleagues also innovate. So this is where I started with, okay, how are we going to how are we going to do this? How are we going to bring some of these learnings that we have from this innovation lab to the rest of the organization, where the day-to-day reality is more execution-driven work, making sure that the deadlines are being met, making sure that the deals are being done, making sure the risks are managed. So it's a very different environment, right? It's not hoodie life and experimenting, trying things out. It's making sure that we get it right every single time, because as a financial institution, you need to make sure you get it right every time. So there was a different environment, and I was looking, how can we make this work? How can we bring these worlds together? So the first thing we did was introduce a one-day training, which was the base fundamentals training. And it's basically in one day, we take people through an innovation journey. And we connected that initially to the design thinking, lean startup, and agile elements, where in the morning we would focus more on design thinking, really exploring the problems, working on personas. And then during lunch, we would actually run an experiment. People would go out and interview people. And then in the afternoon, we would show how agile ways of working, and then specifically Scrum elements, could help by providing structure and cadence. So this was a great introduction, as it gave people some kind of a flavor of, okay, this is what's going on sort of with this methodology. However, my deck at the time, my slide deck at the time, was about, I think, 240 slides.
Holy shit. Yes.
I know. So there was just a lot of material to get through. And that was one element. So it was a lot. And
did it feel rushed?
Sometimes, well, the feedback was overall not necessarily rushed. I think it was one specific session where I tried to put even more stuff in that the people were like, sorry, the last part about experimentation. So that was one end was, well, there's a lot going on. I feel super energized, but it's like, if you would tell me what are the top 3 takeaways, I find it more difficult to assess that. And the other thing was, how do I now actually operationalize this and take this back to my day-to-day work, where again, it's execution driven, deal driven, and get it right the first time. So, and I see I see something happening in the chat. So Aga, she is one of those people that actually saw the 240 plus slide deck. And actually it was Aga
it's going to be a long day.
She was like, cannot. Let's fix this. So Aga, and I'm happy that you joined. Aga developed the Scrum educational experience, which, one of the elements of the PACE methodology is Agile Scrum. So she was like, let's break this down. Let's bring that focus back and make it smaller and make it more actionable for people. So we work together, and so the slide deck is now, I think, around, I recently checked it, I think it was 80 slides.
Nice.
Still quite a bit, but coming from 200. And what we do now is we restructured it. So we now basically, we still follow the innovation process, but rather than giving assignments and sort of having a group chat about it, we have much more structure in there. And I love it. And everybody who participates also really enjoys it, because it's so clear what the objective is of every small sprint that we're doing. So basically what we do now, we have about 8 sprints in a day. And we start with you should participate. I think you would really enjoy it.
I want to. Please sign me up for the next one. No, I want to be a participant.
As participant, undergo it. So basically what we do now is we start with, in the morning, we first identify the different challenges that people can choose from. And we focused on the sustainable development goals now, which I think is really, really cool, because we allow people to basically step away from their day-to-day banking environment and choose something they're passionate about and connect over that with other colleagues. And then we first focus, for example, on the persona. So we then have a very specific sprint. So we actually give a briefing. We have almost like a little planning meeting where we say, okay, this is what's going to be expected of you in the next sprint. Then we give them, we always say 10 minutes, but it's always more like 15 or 20 minutes, where people can actually work on building that persona. And then the mantra is, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be done. Then they come back.
I've got a question.
Yeah, go.
Okay, I got a question about the persona. Is it so? Do they bring their own problems, like bring your own problem kind of thing, where you structure the 1 day event around something that's relevant to something that they're dealing with in their business unit, or is it something that is kind of, I don't know, you made up some like sample problem that you run through, and the persona is about that?
We have done different things. So
Okay.
for the training, we try to be a bit more generic because we have people
Hmm.
from all over the organization joining, and I want to make, for me, one goal of the training is also to connect people. So it's not just about people in one team that already know each other trying this
Hmm.
different thing on, but really also showing how people can leverage each other's knowledge, because innovation doesn't happen in isolation. We always try to create value for someone. And what I find really powerful is if you bring multidisciplinary teams together, they
Hmm.
can actually right away see how the different perspectives give different angles to a problem to be solved.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
so specifically for how we organize the training now, we're using the sustainable development goals. So there's a number of goals people can choose from. Previously, when something with the pandemic started, we focused on the challenge: how might we,
Mhm.
I think, how might we help working professionals while working from home? It was something about working from home. And
Yeah.
before that, fun fact, we had a challenge: how might we support working professionals while they commute to work?
Mm.
But what we saw was that within Singapore, where we were doing the training, the commute was so smooth, there were hardly any problems to find. So then we transitioned to lunch breaks, and there was a lot more going on there. Because so we were actually able to do some proper ideation there. But yeah, so we
Nice.
have now these very specific sprints through which we take people through the innovation journey to make it very actionable and tangible, what they're working on, and we actually integrate those elements of an agile way of working in
Mhm.
the whole training, rather than having it as a thing at the end where it's like, okay, yeah, and you can then structure it around
Okay.
these kind of methodologies.
You
So
you
yeah,
said you said eight sprints.
I think
Was
we
it
have
eight
around eight. I think we have
in
around
the
eight
same
sprints
day?
in the same day.
Okay, so describe to me what a sprint looks like.
Sprint
What
looks
what's
like,
what's a whole day? Like you start like 9 to 5 or what
yeah, 9 to 4.
9 to 4, give or take.
Yeah,
Okay. And then what does a sprint look like? How long does it take? What happens during
short.
that? Yeah, short.
So what we do is,
Yes.
and this is based on the Scrum educational experience
Hmm.
that was developed by Aga's company, and basically how we applied it now in this context is that we have a planning meeting. Basically, we have a briefing moment.
Hmm.
Then we have a very specific task. We basically have almost like a Kanban board of actions.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have like the Kanban board of actions, like, okay, for a persona, so task, sprint goal, build a
Hmm.
persona. Tasks are identify their needs, identify biggest pain points, identify something else, and come
Right.
up with a name.
Back.
So it's
Right.
very tangible what they need to do. And the best part is, this works for people, well, I think as young as kindergarten, all the way up to senior working professionals. It just really helps to have that very clear structure, that very clear focus.
Okay.
So
Okay.
basically,
Now, okay.
it
No, I
continues.
get. I
There's
get
more
it.
to the sprint.
Okay. Yeah. Go on. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So we have the introduction of the challenge. Then we basically have the specific deliverables, right? And then we say, all right, teams, and they usually all have team names, which is my favorite part. And we have in every team a mentor, and these mentors have gone through this training multiple times. We've actually coached them to support this journey. So they then go
Mhm.
in their little breakout rooms and they do the sprint. So they build the thing. Then it's always like, all right, 1 more minute. And then we give them 2 more minutes. And it's like, oh my God. And it's like, it doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be done. So
People
then,
sweating.
exactly. And then, so then they come back into the main room. And we usually have about 4 to 5 teams, I would say. And everybody does a demo.
Mm.
So to actually show what they've done. And then we do a shared retrospective. So then we'll actually
Mm.
reflect on mostly on, partially on the content, partially also on the process. In this case, okay, well, we've seen this, and this is how it works in practice. And we basically have that moment of together learning and really internalizing what we just discussed on this very focused topic. We wrap that up, and then we move to the next phase, which is then after persona, we do customer journey. And after customer journey, we do problem research planning. So that's how we have all these little sprints, but each of them have a very clear focus. And that's what I think is really powerful about this model.
That is powerful. That's, I think, perhaps the first time I've heard anyone structure. So the reason I was trying to interrupt you, very Israeli of me. I apologize.
It's also dialogue, right? It's not lectures of School of Innovation.
I know. I know. But you were in the middle of an idea, and I just barged in. So, but because like something like a virtual light bulb came on. And it was like, okay, what you're doing is taking each part of this workshop, each piece of like each module of this workshop, and treating it as a sprint.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant, because you're also giving them a chance to it is because you're giving them a chance to also experience what a sprint is. So it's like it's the module, the content in the module, but also the delivery or the execution of that model that is sprint like, that you're giving them that experience as well, which is why I think it's brilliant.
And what
probably
I love
chaotic
about it,
as well, and like people.
It's for people who do it the first time.
It's
it
hard.
can feel chaotic and overwhelming. And
yes,
we actually start the day off with like some kind of I wouldn't call them rules of the game, but more like our working principles.
Yes.
And one of them is being comfortable being uncomfortable, and sharing that we're going to be working at high velocity, and that it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be done like 60% is good enough. So that is how we what we say at the beginning, and then we say it at the beginning, we're like, oh yeah, whatever. And then actually halfway through, we're like, hey, remember, so you may feel uncomfortable right now. You may feel pressured right now. And what was actually something that blew my mind was I was someone who would make a to-do list, and I actually look. I have evidence. Look, I have these very cute to-do lists. And nice. Mom, if you're on the call, thank you. My mom also loves to-do lists. So I would just write down everything and try to, do everything from top to bottom. Yep. And even if I would say, okay, I'm going to be wrapping up my working day at 7 today, I would just keep going until it was done. So basically, and then I would just end at like 10 in the evening. However, what is so powerful about having a sprint, you cannot get everything done. You won't be able to finish everything on that list. So you need to prioritize. That's one thing. So you can probably do half. And then within the things that you've prioritized, you need to identify how well does this need to be done. And this is then where it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be done come in, which is again, we give people 15 minutes to make a persona. Normally, you could take a full week to build and validate and do whatever to build a persona. However, this is really more about getting people through the whole process from beginning of the end to understand what the PACE process looks like, what an innovation journey looks like, and also experiencing that uncertainty and like, oh, what's going to happen next? And we need to follow the evidence. And that sense of being overwhelmed and being in an uncertain environment it's just part of the journey. And I actually experienced it last week myself, and I had to really remind myself of it's part of the journey. It is okay, and you need to sometimes just reflect on why are we feeling so uncomfortable with a fast-moving, uncertain environment. Because there's lots to unpack there.
Totally agree. Yeah, for sure. I think you're also doing another important thing, which is desensitizing them to risk awareness. Part of this is kind of like something I've been thinking about a while. Part of this uncomfortable feeling is this risk awareness, right? Like you want to stay away from taking unnecessary risks. This is more so in a corporate environment where you're not really compensated, I would say, for taking risk, typically. And by giving them assignments that are by definition impossible, like you are never going to accomplish this. This is a train wreck that's just happening, right? It's going to happen. And you're kind of like standing on the sidelines watching this happen, right? This car wreck that's going to happen. But you're giving them the option to go through it, right? And feel like they essentially failed. They essentially failed because they did not complete, like based on the usual corporate guidelines, they didn't complete the task, right? They had a bunch of tasks they were supposed to do. There was an assignment. Like most of the time when you go into these workshops, people want to know, what do I need to do? Like, tell me, right? And this is your assignment. And now you've got an impossible amount of time to complete it in. So they're going to fail. They fail at it because you cannot do like a persona. Let's just take the persona as an example in 5 minutes. Okay. You need, if you're doing it for the first time, you need 30 minutes, but they only have 5. So they're going to fail, or the result is going to be crappy. So they failed, but you are reframing their failure as actually a different kind of success, right? You are able to prioritize, to say this is more important than that thing, and actually complete something in the given amount of time and move on. You have enough information or evidence, whatever, to move on to the next step, module, whatever, right? And so you haven't failed. You've succeeded, but in a different way. I think that's...
Well, it also really depends on the objectives. Well, yeah, I disagree.
Good.
And for these reasons. So first of all, at the beginning of the training, we actually say the objective is this of this training is to take you through the journey and show you what an innovation process looks like, and have fun together. I think those are the main 3 objectives that we've actually set. So that's one thing in terms of, it's not an objective to have a perfect MVP at the end of the day training. It's more of having an understanding of what's going on. And then when it's specifically within the deliverables that they need to do for the sprints, I wouldn't call it so from what I've seen, there have been no failures as you described them, as in 15 minutes, and arguably within 5 minutes, you can build a persona that you can have a conversation around. Plus, it is about learning, right? So it's the first attempt in learning. FAILed acronym.
Yes. We love acronyms. Keep them coming.
4-letter acronyms. So it's an opportunity to learn. Plus, that's also why we have those mentors in the group, to actually keep reminding them of, it doesn't have to be perfect, just doesn't have to be done. You don't have to, if you draw a picture of someone, it can be a circle with a smiley face or a sad face, and you kind of know what's going on. It doesn't matter how many hairs this person have or what color their beard hairs are over their face. It's a level of granularity that may be useful later down the line when you have that information. We're like, oh, this person actually has very long hair, and they have a long beard because this is a person that plays drums in a heavy metal band, because that's why they want to look like that. But when you do a 15-minute sprint, it's really about the level of fidelity that is needed at that stage is very high level. So it's just really taking that then as we as a team understand now, for the design that we're developing, this is who we are talking about. And they can then, of course, do all kinds of research to make it more granular. But this also reminds you brings back to Lean Startup as well, and 0 to 1 specifically. Have you read the 0 to 1?
Peter Thiel book, yeah.
Yeah. So for those on the call who are not familiar, the 0 to 1 book is really about the power of bringing something out of nothing into existence. So from nothing to one thing, 0 to 1, and then how you get from that one thing to 100 things. So how you can really scale it up. And in these workshops, what we're doing is really focusing on that 0 to 1 bit, like how do you create something out of nothing? Because from there onwards, you can refine it, you can ideate, you can make it more specific through the research that you're doing. But it's really just the power of getting started, which is, I think, also in the risk averseness that you just shared, for a lot of people, it is very difficult to just get started, to just do something, because they want it to be perfect. They have a vision. They have this idea that has been brewing in their mind for weeks or months or maybe even years. And then it just gets very scary to put something on paper. So we really try to get people out of that and say, listen, it doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be done. Just put something on paper, because what you write down may inspire someone else, which may inspire someone else to actually build on that collective wisdom.
Yeah.
So that's where I feel we're really focusing on more, rather than in 30 minutes, within the difference between 5 minutes and 30 minutes is not that big.
No, but it's also not the amount of time. I think it's what you said about just getting started and putting things out there. There's a we haven't talked about this, but there's a huge upside here to like visual thinking. We haven't discussed visual thinking, but like the power of visual thinking and in a group collaboratively, sharing your thoughts visually is super powerful. Like, and a lot of people just don't do that, or are very uncomfortable doing that, because we have that small voice in our heads that is always like self-criticizing us, that no, it's not enough, and B, we think we suck at drawing, which is really not what this is about. I'm an architect. I still don't know how to draw. I suck at it. But it's like, I'm just good. You need to put it out there and see what people think about it. Because, when I say chair, you and I are thinking about two completely different chairs.
Yeah.
For sure. Like the chance that we're both thinking about the same chair is like, maybe there's like one iconic chair that we both like, that specific designer. And we're thinking, but that's kind of like a weird.
I have a chair in my head right now, so I'm very curious if you also have a chair in your head right now, like a famous designer, Dutch famous designer.
No, I had the Eames chair in mind.
I don't even know that chair.
Oh, it's a beautiful chair. We should do a show about chairs. Did you have like
the chair?
Did you have like Rietveld chair?
Yeah. I mean,
he's a genius as well.
I don't know. And Dutch.
I like the Dutch. So. I like the Dutch.
Hereby claimed as Dutch.
Good for you. So I think that's important. I think there's something else we should talk about, maybe briefly, and there's probably a whole office hour we could do about that as well, which is something you alluded to in the beginning. And it's that kind of setting the tone for the day, like the initial briefing, right? When people come into...
Set expectations.
Yeah, setting expectations. Exactly. And I think that's really important. And a lot of people kind of, I wouldn't say glance over it, but maybe not take it as seriously. They kind of treat it as a set of guidelines, or which is not. It's like more of a conversation. Like this is going to be a shared experience, and this is what again, going back to the chair example, this is what I have in mind, and I want us both to be like, I want both of us to think about the same chair. Like I want this to be, this is the game, this is the core, this is how we're going to play, right? And so I think it's much more than guidelines. I'm curious, like, what are some of the guidelines, or some of what's part of the conversation that you have at that specific point in time in these one day intros?
We've tried different things, experimentation.
Okay. Yes.
So what I've seen and what I've also participated in myself were, if you have the time to basically have like a shared creation of the objectives. Okay, what do you want to learn today? And let's get the Post-its out, and then you can also have a group contract of how you want to work together. So that's stuff that you can collectively create. Yes. However, how we do it is more of because of the limited time, it's more like this is what's going to happen. Bam, bam, bam. We do ask people beforehand to fill out a survey for multiple reasons. This is actually part of an experiment. which is something I'm happy to share. So basically, and I'm very excited about it. I'm still very proud that I came up with this. So basically, we have people fill out a survey to understand who they are, how we can best reach them, and then understand what their current understanding is alongside the overall innovation process, lean startup, agile scrum, design thinking. Like, do they already have a base level of understanding? Because we measure that again afterwards to then see, have we been significantly increasing everything? However, this is also a high hurdle experiment.
Ooh.
As when I just started doing these trainings, I would have 30 people sign up, and I was like, oh my God, 30 people. And we would organize lunch for them. People would get a free lunch if they showed up and listened to me blab the whole day about innovation. They would get
Tell
lunch.
great jokes. Yeah.
Exactly. And all the great jokes. Yeah. I can, well, that's not, I realized if I make too many bad jokes, my internet connection will just cut off. So I'll behave.
Let's skip that.
But what I noticed was that a lot of people would just last minute cancel or not show up. And then we would have all these bagels, amazing bagels, that would just go to waste. Well, the rest of my team was happy because they could eat them. But I was then expecting 25 people and only 7 people would show up. And I was like, this is not how it should be. So we made it into a high hurdle experiment. And the assumption or the hypothesis that we were testing here was basically, if people really want to do this training, if they really want to participate in this training, they will go through the pain of a long survey to register. Nice. And if people then go through the whole survey to register, they have gone through that sort of effort and they've sort of bought into that this is something that they want to do. And then the amount of people that will actually sign up and join will be higher.
Yes. Commitment devices.
And it was validated. But in that survey, we also asked them about the expectations of the day. That was where I was working towards with this.
Wait. No, but hold on. A question. Was there a correlation between the people who... Yes.
Hardcore. Okay. Yeah. Just awesome. Total correlation. Because it was like a list of 40 questions or 30 questions I had them fill out. And it was just like, what's the color of your dog's hair? Well, okay, not that bad. But I could have...
What kind of bagels do you like?
Yeah, well, they did have to put their dietary requirements in there.
Oh, that's reasonable. No, that's fair. Yeah. Okay, so, but you were getting, you were
so,
getting
so the expectations. So we also asked them, what are your expectations of the day? And I think I even asked it in like 3 different ways, because high hurdle experiment. But also, I noticed that what are your expectations are sometimes a little bit more innovation speak. So expectations, talking about the chair, can mean different things to different people. So I would have a question in there saying, what are your expectations for the day? But also, what would you like to get out of this training? Which to me is the same thing, as in it's going to be a means to an end. What is the end that you want to get to? Yes. So through that, we actually got a lot of input as well. And we then used all those inputs to make a word cloud and to basically iterate, all right, we heard you, we've seen you, this is what you shared with us. It was basically, you want to better understand what PACE is about, you want to have an introduction. Sometimes people had very specific requests on, do you have a project on KYC that's driven by machine learning? And then I'd be like, this is something we're not going to discuss today. Let's have a call, or I'm happy to put you in touch with someone, to actually also make sure that what we would not do was also clear.
Yes. Spot on. So I think that survey, or doing some kind of you treat this 1-day intro workshop, any kind of corporate training or development experience, as a product in and of itself, right? So you would never think about building a product without understanding your personas. So doing the survey is part of understanding your persona, what they want to get out of this, what's important to them, what are their pain points, how do they like to communicate. We do an
NPS score afterwards. We do an NPS survey score after, because Net Promoter Score, the S is already a score, so otherwise it's NPS, Net Promoter Score.
I like that score. That's good.
Score.
Score. Yes. So that's smart. that's smart. I think the commitment device, we should do a whole office hours about that,
Mm.
because I think actually in corporate settings, corporates like should challenge themselves in terms of commitment devices. Like think
Mm-hmm.
of these things, like you utilize more tactics, like more dirty tactics from like gaming, right? To get more, like you got, I don't know, you got to put in money. You got to put up the money in front, like, right? People, so in corporate, the business units always make fun of the innovation folks for being a
Mm-hmm.
cost center, right? You don't have a P&L. You're a cost center. You're wasting all our money, blah, 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 all
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. So, but the innovation team is putting together a lot of valuable IP, right? A lot of valuable content for the business, which I think shouldn't go to waste, right? If you're planning a training event for 30 people, then 30 people should show up, or like 29 or 28, but not 7. So, like, more
Ideally.
ideally, yes. And if there
On
are
the other hand, those
bagels,
7 people that showed up had the best training ever because we gave them so much personal attention, and because it
yeah.
was small and intimate, like our amazing live podcast recordings. Come join. We were actually able to go so much deeper into the content and really make it specific to them and their environment. So
Yeah.
it actually was a impromptu experiment in itself. In what would it look like if we have very small classrooms?
Nice. Nice. Still, I think harsher commitment devices, or sneakier, like, down and dirty kind of commitment devices to get more folks in the room, is something that we should explore in the next office hours or in the future office hours. I want to, like, before we wrap up, because we're kind of, I don't know, getting close to like 60 minutes. Let's talk about, because you said you started talking about the one intro event as a journey. You said the magic
Mm-hmm.
word. It's a journey.
It
So
is a journey.
it's a journey. So in a
It's a
journey,
journey.
there's a path. There's something that happens. It's not like a one day thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, tell me what happens next. Like, they have this one day thing.
Yeah.
What happens next, and how do you set them up for success
Yeah.
after?
Yeah. So we've done a lot of experiments on that
Mm,
last year, actually. So basically, the first ever base fundamentals training we gave was 14 August 2019. There we
okay.
go. Yeah, yeah. And then
Okay.
it became a monthly
Boom.
thing. So then every month we would have this
Hmm.
training, basically. And I would just shamelessly then reach out afterwards, like, "Hey, how are you now using pace in practice?" And the at some point, I had like a little focus group together. I had them fill out a survey because data, and the main feedback was, "I want to do this. I think it makes a lot of sense. However, you know, it's kind of like a hobby project now more." And I was like,
Hmm.
what are you talking about? Innovation is all of ours responsibility, and it's
Business
for the
as usual.
future. It needs to be business as usual. Exactly. That's my purpose in my professional life. And so I was like, oh wow, this is let's uncover this a little bit more. And then I, user research. Then we actually went this layer deeper, and people shared, well, the thing is, it's not in my targets, it's not in my colleagues' targets, it's not in my manager's targets. So even though I want to, like, it gives me energy, I enjoy
Hmm.
creating new stuff, I enjoy making impact, like I want to do all these things.
Yeah.
However, it's not in my target, so I cannot get the support that
Hmm.
I need, and I need to work together with other people to make this happen. So that was a big issue. And then there were even a few people who were already trying something out, like they had something in their targets in terms of, I want to innovate. They actually made it part of what they did. And I
Hmm.
was like, okay, that sounds amazing, and what does that look like? And then this guy said, well, I spend 1 hour a week thinking about new ideas. And I was like, that is fabulous.
Okay.
Then what? And he's like,
Good
well,
start.
I didn't get that far yet. It was kind of like,
Yeah.
have you seen Nemo? You have young
Yes.
kids.
Yeah. Of
So Nemo,
course.
at the end, I'm sorry, spoiler alert for those who have not seen Nemo, please look away. So in Nemo, then they have this sort of intricate how they're going to escape the fishbowl, and then
Yeah.
they get into the water, but they're still in these plastic bags, and they're just like, now what? So this was kind of the feeling I was getting from this guy that was like, okay, I got innovation in my targets. I'm going to think about new ideas. And then I asked him, okay, now what? And he was like, I don't know. And he was just basically in his little
Stuck.
plastic bag in the sea. So what that made me realize was, you cannot just for an hour a day, like look out the window, think about new ideas, and then go back to work. Innovation
Mhm.
is about putting these ideas to practice, making impact, getting them into the hands of people and actually get feedback. So this
Yeah.
triggered me to create what we called innovation menu items. So
Ooh.
basically, what I made was just very specific actions you could take, things you could basically copy paste into your targets on how you could do innovation. So
Mhm.
not just think about
Mhm.
new ideas, but just make it very explicit and measurable how you would do innovation, which was easier to support, of course, for managers. It was also easier for people to understand what it would look like. So that was part one, those menu items, and I'll share some examples in a second. But the second element to it was also creating a measurability framework around it. So to actually have
Oh.
numbers, to make a distinction to, okay, when do you really need to put more effort in? When is it a job well done? And when is someone actually excelling?
Mhm.
So that was something we actioned last year, and which was really, really cool. Um, we had we started the year with about 60 people who signed up, who were like,
Mhm.
I want to try, I want to be part of this experiment, basically, who
Yeah.
took those menu items and structured them together because, menu items, depending on your appetite, you could combine them into what worked for you.
Yes.
Um, so, for example,
Create
one
your
of the
own
menu
lunch.
exactly create your own innovation experience. So that was what we did last year to just make it very operational, very very tangible, how people could get started.
Mhm.
But what we then still saw was, okay, we need to make sure that it's not something people do on top of their work, but that we integrate it with how they already operate. So right now, we just set up this new team with the most incredible people who are super driven to, just like me, make innovation business as usual, make
Mhm.
change work for people. And what we are seeing is that people want to do this, and even if they have it in their targets, it's still a matter of how am I going to find the time. And for me, that's more a question of how can we integrate this in the structures that you're already functioning in. So if you already
Yes.
have, for example, a 2-week sprint with your team, how can we then leverage that and wedge a little bit of innovation in there? And again,
Mm.
doesn't have to be perfect, just has to be done. Going back to base
Yeah,
fundamentals,
yeah.
like how can we start with small things? And even now within our team, we are starting to use this Kanban board to break down the tasks that we're going to work on per sprint. And I'm just really happy we have now one place where we have that, where we have an understanding of who's doing what. And
Mhm.
then the next level will be having more detailed specific tasks, having very clear time boxes, having very clear this. But we as a team are assessing what works for us and how do we make this
Mhm.
part of our way of working rather
Okay.
than this other thing that we also need to do.
Okay.
And so that's now the journey we are on, in terms of we have all these people
Yeah.
working again in those execution driven, deal driven, elements. And we're trying to just wedge it in.
So the clarification though, the when you say team, it's this group of people who are part of different or other business units who are also part of your program, or is it your team? Like, is it an
I
innovation
have a
team?
team. I have
Okay,
the coolest team. And we are
I'm sure.
this. It's like we are a little center of expertise, so we're really there to
Mm,
help. But we're a team of 4 people, and we don't have all the knowledge of everything that happens in the bank.
right.
So we need to work with people who have identified these challenges, these things that can be fixed, and look how we can support them to make a sustainable change. And if they
Right.
want to change something again, that they can do it again. So the
Okay.
people that we're supporting are those people in business units.
Yes.
My dream teams always have people from different teams and even different locations together,
Hmm.
because what we talked about at the beginning, right, with the base fundamentals training, it's so powerful when you can bring people together with different backgrounds and different locations, and because it just makes it so much easier and faster to actually identify different angles to a problem, which helps with validating assumptions on the problem, to help validating assumptions about the solution. So yeah, to really
Nice.
yeah,
No, I
move
like
that
I like
forward.
you have so many elements from behavioral economics or like, behavioral psychology. That's pretty cool. Like the little so you identified like barriers to entry, or like you put together a bunch of like these nudges or triggers, right, in
Mm,
these like menu items that kind of remove some of the initial friction that someone
mhm.
would have. Like, I have this great
Yeah,
idea, I put
barriers
it
to
up.
enter. I like that, like the
Yeah,
barriers to enter. Because if
yeah.
we again compare it with the people in the innovation lab doing innovation 24 hours, it's their
Mhm.
full-time job,
Yeah.
versus people who want to but they can't because there's not a level playing field, in the sense that they cannot just have another full-time job on top of what they're already doing to
Mhm.
implement something new. So how do
Yeah.
you level that playing field,
Yeah, it's
basically?
it and it's also this concept of framing or reframing, right? Um you're not treating innovation as this like sort of like heterotopian idea of like something that happens outside of the business, right?
Mm.
In the secret
No,
magical kingdom.
no, 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 no secrets, no
It
secrets.
it's happening in your project, and we're
Yeah,
leveraging the stuff that you're already doing, that already
yeah,
exists, to
yeah.
integrate into that. So that's awesome.
'Cause if you would ask me what is your job, I would say,
What's your job, Suzanne? What is your
oh,
job?
great question, Yaniv. I'm so
Thank
happy
you.
to provide an answer. I
Thank you.
think at least half of my job is about demystifying innovation, because a
Mhm.
lot of the time it's like, oh, innovation, that means you do things with the blockchain, right? Or it has to be technology driven and it can just completely new, and it's only something you can do if you're hyper creative. I think those
Mhm.
are the two major responses. And then it's really about reframing that and saying, no, it's really something for everyone, and we actually need different people on board. We need people with that risk averseness, or that
Mhm.
really like very critical mindset in terms of, is this going to work or not, when we're going to
Mhm.
make decisions on the outcomes of our experiments, for example, or when it comes to the business case. But we also need those goofballs with the weird ideas, but we need to team them up with someone who can then actually put it into a structure so that the other people can understand it as well. So it's really about breaking it back down to, no, innovation is something for everybody, and everybody has something to bring to the table, and let's just make sure that we unleash that innovation potential in everybody, and making sure that they understand how they can collaborate and make impact and
I,
world peace.
I'm sending I'm sending you a microphone. You needed to drop something now, and
Yeah, I just have nothing to
those
well,
those are those are closing words, my friend. Those are powerful closing words. I do want to fly in a banner just because they're
oh,
cool.
the
No,
banners,
no, we
just
have a
because we can.
there's a banner. Oh my God.
Oh
Um,
my god, what is happening
yes.
here? This
What's
looks very
happening?
professional.
Doesn't it?
Mhm. Looks like
Yeah,
we're a real thing.
we're real. We are a real thing. We just made it into a real thing with the banner, of course.
Hmm.
So everything you want to know or do or be in the School of Innovation is starts here with this banner, with the link on this banner. So type it into your favorite internet browser, follow it, and you'll get a bunch of options, right? To join, to listen, to view, to do, to whatever with the School of Innovation. Have a
Any other
bagel?
verb, plug it in here.
Yes,
Have a bagel with us.
have a bagel with us. Um, I think with that, we'll wrap up. Do you have any like words of wisdom to send us off into the weekend, or?
Even more words
I
of
don't.
wisdom.
Yeah, that's not fair. I know. I know. You just.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, my final words of wisdom would be, it's okay to not have all the answers yet. We can
Mm,
only see as far as our headlights go, but you can still
right.
make it the whole way that way.
Boom. Okay.
I think I used the same one last time, but that's
No,
okay.
it's fine. We're all
It's
about.
it's my favorite at the moment. It's like,
Yeah, we're not trying to be creative or innovative. We're
innovation
just.
is not about being creative, it's just about implementing ideas.
Yes.
Hey.
Plugging in plugging the right content at the right time.
Wow. Okay, those were the final wise words. I'm done. I have nothing to add to that.
That's it. No more banners. We're done. All right, folks. We'll see you next week. If you have answers, we have the answers. If you have questions that you want us to answer,
If you have answers, we can come up with questions.
we can come up with questions. We could do a Jeopardy like office hours. So that'd be cool. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Peace, love,
And happiness.
and happiness, and bagels.
And
All right.
bagels.